Współpraca na linii trener-zawodnik nie zawsze jest prosta i przyjemna. Z jednej strony trener musi być pewny swoich działań, a z drugiej zawodnik musi w pełni zaufać trenerowi, że stosowane przez niego środki i metody treningowe przyniosą zamierzone rezultaty. Jak budować zaufanie w ten proces? Jak przygotować się na porażki w trakcie tego procesu? Jak radzić sobie w chwilach zwątpienia i chęci zmiany? O tym wszystkim rozmawiam z moim dzisiejszym gościem, moim przyjacielem i mentorem Inakim de la Parra, przedsiębiorcą, byłym mistrzem świata na dystansie Ultramana, trenerem wielu znakomitych zawodników na całym świecie. Z racji tego, że Inaki po polsku dużo rozumie, ale swobodniej czuje się posługując się językiem angielskim, to rozmowa będzie właśnie w tym języku. Zapraszam do Gruppetto.
Cześć, z tej strony Mateusz Gawełczyk, a Ty słuchasz podcastu Dietetyk Sportowy Online. Dietetyk Sportowy Online to podcast, w którym w prosty sposób wyjaśniam trudne zagadnienia sportowego rzemiosła. Dzięki tej audycji poszerzysz swoją wiedzę z zakresu żywienia, suplementacji, regeneracji, sprzętu oraz treningu. Ten podcast dedykowany jest kolarzom i triatlonistom, którzy poszukują praktycznych rozwiązań i metod na poprawę swoich wyników. Zapraszam do Gruppetto.
Hello, Inaki.
Hello, Mateusz. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm happy to be here.
Good.
Talking to you after few years in your last episode.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't remember when we recorded for the last time, but it was probably 3 years ago.
Yeah, something like this.
I'm very glad that you accept my invitation. It's always a great pleasure for me to talk to you. Either as a friend,
same for me. It's the same.
Or as a mentor, because you are my mentor, and I say it many times. Why don't you start with a short background about yourself? Please tell us who you are and what you do on a daily basis.
I would consider myself an elite in what I'm trying to achieve. Meaning, in this case, I'm trying to be an elite husband and dad, and it's very, very difficult. It's the hardest elite trial I ever tried, and I tried several. So that's what I'm trying to do right now, being a good husband, a good dad. Trying to grab my head around business as well after about a decade of being a bit disconnected. For the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years, I've been coming around again. And and staying active, as you know, because we go several times for coffee rides that become into mini races, but still active. I try to do a lot of exercise, sometimes less, sometimes more, but always something. And I think that's about it, man. Just trying to find my own way, as I was doing before and as I would keep doing, and trying to influence positively my family, my community, my friends, and the people that I care about.
For those of listeners who don't know how the coffee ride looks like in your case, the coffee is at the end after the races.
Of course. Yeah, there is no coffee in between. It's when we finish and when we start. That's it.
That's true, but I like it.
I like it also.
Okay, first question. It's typical question for my podcast. What is your best sports memory, either as an athlete or as a coach?
I could start with the best memory I had as a coach. Probably was last year when I was with Kasia and Maciek, Kasia Solinska and Maciek Dąbrowski in UTMB. And I had the chance to be close to them in that important race. I was crewing with Maciek. My son Tomek was there with me the week leading into the race, and it was a fantastic experience for me as a human being and as a coach to witness the struggle, the growth, the peaks, the downs of the crew, of the athlete, but more importantly, afterwards to see the engagement of them as a couple and the development professionally for them, for me, the personal development as well, and the fitness development in the case of them. So that I would recall as one of the best coaching memories I have. Probably on my end, probably when I was second place in Ultraman, Florida, because I fall off the bike that time and I broke my helmet and broke the bike and I thought the race was over. And I was trying to break the world record back then. And it ended up being a fantastic race because my crew took me out of the ground, pushed me, told me to continue. And after being stopped like for 1 hour or more and being at the back end of the race, like in the last, and all crash and burst, I was able to recover the second position. So that was one of the best moments in my career.
Okay. Coming back to the first one, connected with Kasia and Maciek, you told that your son was there with you.
Yes.
What was his feeling about this kind of experience? Because probably it was the very first time in his age when he has some memory to keep about the race and the atmosphere there.
I think it's quite interesting in the case of Tomek because he has memories even of being in Hawaii with me when I was spending a lot of time.
How old he was there?
Like 3-4 years old. So he has he remembers things. So, and few people from races, and there is people coming and going on the house like you and many other former or current elite athletes. And it really doesn't matter for him, to be honest, if you are elite athlete, if you are amateur athlete, if you are fat, if you are skinny. For him, he has a lot of respect for anyone doing any sport. And he's a sportsman as well. So I think for him was interesting. And he's always very respectful, either if it's soccer, basketball, badminton, handicapped people playing any sport. He doesn't really care as long as they are doing their best effort. And he saw that and he was like analyzing, and he's very introverted. So he gave me a few comments like, they made a good effort. Like very precise information, just like, and of course it was kind of hard because you are sleeping in the car for like 48 hours and eating, chips and canapkas all the time. So it's not like, oh, it's fantastic experience. Like you are also struggling, but never to the extent like the athlete. Yeah. So I think, and we'll get into that, growth, professionally, personally, as a human comes from struggle, and those little struggles also for him as my son are important, and he's growing and learning from them.
That's one of the topics that I would like to cover in this episode, because I would like to talk to you about believing in the training process. Can you explain us the role of trust in the training process and why it is crucial for athletes to trust in the training plan?
I think the plan, it's important. Having mapped out a process is important, but more importantly, understanding what you want to achieve and why. So why you want to pursue being an amateur elite athlete, or an amateur just, health and fitness athlete, or a professional athlete. You need to understand why are you doing that in the sport and outside the sport in order for you to tackle properly the challenge. Because many times, and I find out myself, and with all of the endurance athletes I've coached, and I think that's applying for most people in any endeavor they pursue when they are like, hyper-focused. You either are running towards something, but you need to know what are you running towards or what are you running away from. And it's okay to run towards something or run away of something as long as you identify what are you and why are you doing it. The problem I see many times is you engage into these processes because you are just trying to distract yourself from other things that are important and you need to solve. So I would say being aware is very important in the before engaging into the process and moving on. The long-term view, so the consistency for health, personal development, and performance, because health, personal development, and performance will collide at some point, will become united at some point, but you can also seek, and you've seen it with many elite athletes, pure performance at cost of personal development and even health. Yeah. So is that worth it or not? I think there is a way, and that's the way I coach elites and non-elites, of pushing the personal development, pushing the health, or not sacrificing the health, and still aim for high performance. But you need a long-term or horizon. So the long-term horizon in the process is very important, because without it, You will be constantly in these cycles of like getting in and out, like it's time for high intensity interval training. Oh, it didn't work. Let's go for low intensity interval training. Oh, it didn't work. And you are coming back and forth. And then you're like, oh, let's stop doing exercise at all because it's boring. Or I get injured. Of course, if you are changing constantly the recipe, that's the thing. To be honest, it's quite simple to be good in sport, whatever sport you choose, but it takes a long, long, long time. And it's very simple. You need progressive overload, consistency, trusting that eventually you will get there and that there are no silver bullets or like...
But you know, people like to find something like this.
Yeah, I mean,
like
today...
a small part of the process that they are very involved in, they are believed in.
Sure. Today I was coaching, I was talking, you know, I don't coach a lot of people now. It's very, very few people I coach. And one of them, it's very, very high level, elite amateur. And it's a female. Super strong, like really, really strong. And she was like, oh, should I gain muscle mass or should I lose muscle mass? And I'm like, you are talking about the 1%. Let's not get into that conversation.
Yeah.
You need to focus on what are we trying to accomplish. You need to be stronger. And your body and your nutrition and the demands of the training will dictate if you will need more muscle mass, and your body will build it eventually. But we don't need to do a hyper focus on building or losing weight. I don't believe in this like hyper focus phases. It's just part of a long-term development process.
I think especially with amateur athletes, it's not necessary to stay focused on marginal gains.
Yeah, but it's very convenient and it's very profitable, and that's what you see in social media all the time.
It's
and
sexy.
Most coaches, it's sexy, it's expensive, so if you spend a lot of money,
Yeah.
it should work, right? So it's a placebo effect, but I always say it. It's very simple doing sport and getting to a really high level. I did it myself. I was, bit fat. I didn't learn how to swim until I was like immersed into the elite world. I mean, it took me like 12 years to figure it out, but if you are patient and you iterate and you learn from the best people you can and you listen to them, eventually you will get there. And if you don't get there, you will learn something about yourself, which is the most important thing.
So we have to know our why. And this is
Yes.
probably one of the most important parts.
Why you want to do it, or why you want to stop doing it, or why you want to change something. And really, it's very deep psychological question. But I think in general, people is complex because we are humans. But people who engage into endurance sports is even a bit more complex. So, I mean, that I know as a fact because I deal with endurance athletes for like 20 years and I'm an endurance athlete myself. So, I know we are in general not easy personalities, and we are trying to either, as I mentioned before, run away of something or find something. And if you really don't focus on finding that, then it can be problematic for the rest of your life and you can be chasing your own tail.
And I think that trust, this is the one of the biggest challenge for athletes, with cooperation between coaches and athletes. And trusting the process often involves overcoming setbacks and obstacles.
Yes.
And how can athletes maintain trust in the training process when faced with challenges or setbacks?
I think you need to understand that if you want to accomplish something, you will need to grow. Because if not, you have already accomplished it. And if you want to grow, normally, as far as I recall from my own experiences and what I can see from people in business and sport and family, growth normally comes from struggle. So setbacks are actually part of it. So, every training phase, sometimes you can feel that you are having a setback in a training phase, but it contributes normally to the overall goal of that training phase. But once again, you need to understand growth. It's very, very important. Then I think the importance of good relationships is very, very important. Good relationships with your friends, good relationships with your family, good relationships with your coach. I think there are few athletes that are, let's say, self-coach. I don't believe there is absolutely anyone that can be self-coached. You are always resourcing something, even in internet, but a good relationship with a coach gives you that gives you that honest communication, someone you can openly talk about things, and you are feeling comfortable discussing concerns, challenges, disappointments. And good coaches can provide clear explanations, adjustments, and help you to understand what happened with your input, what happened with your outcome, what are the learning experiences in between, and what should be the iterations for a better progress. So I think, to answer your question, growth is related to struggle and setbacks. So if you want to grow, you will need to overcome the setbacks and don't be scared. And also you need to be consistent and patient, even when there are setbacks.
I think patience is the big challenge.
Yeah,
in that process of training, because
as it is, for example, recovery, because I don't know any endurance athlete, at least that I personally met, that they don't like training. I mean, they are doing this because they like it, but when you tell them, hey, you need to take a day off or a week off, or we need to do an off season, they don't want to do this.
I know.
So it also, recovery can be a setback if you don't apply recovery as part of your learning process. So remember that to allow growth, you need those setbacks, because growth comes from struggle. But in order for growth to happen, you need an stressor, which is the training, and you need the recovery, which is the phase of adaptation, where you are going to actually absorb all the work you've done. If you want to skip the absorption phase or the recovery phase, there will be no growth. And you will face the struggle, and you will need to, eventually, your body will tell you, hey, we need to stop. There is a sprained ankle, there is a broken bone. Then you stop, you rest, forced rest, and then you come back to it. But what's the necessity of going through that? Many times it's harder mentally and physically to do that, to break a bone, to break a ligament, to break a tendon, because you didn't took that time off that your body will eventually take itself. Yeah. Or you have just burnout mentally. So it's very, very easy for endurance athletes to dig a hole, get into the hole, and stay in the hole for a long period of time because they have very strong minds.
Do you know any athletes who are good and they are coaching themselves?
I know athletes that are calling themselves self-coach and they are very good, but they are always going to advisors.
Okay.
They are always asking people around, mentors. I mean, they are not proclaiming, hey, I have a coach, but they are, getting the best advice from different people and then figuring out themselves. Is that effective or not effective? I don't think it's effective, because you are losing the perspective and you are leaving everything inside your head. You can see that, for example, in business as well, with CEOs, with great executives. It happens the same. They always have someone to guide them through and to advise them sometimes on what to do when to rebound this conversation. Sometimes it's just playing the mirror. You are listening to yourself by explaining to other person, and the other person is just receptive. So I think a team is important and a relationship is important. No matter, we are humans. Being alone in sport, being alone in a business, being alone by yourself, it's very tough. I don't know many people that like to be completely isolated from having a relationship, romantic, with friends. Like, I don't know anyone, to be honest, that is there in Ustron in a cabin and they don't talk to the world at all, because it's not human. We are that kind of species that we like to communicate and be among each other. Sometimes more like extroverts, sometimes less like introverts. But all of us will need other people.
Maybe in one day, using artificial intelligence. I know a movie, Her.
Yeah.
This is something what can happen in the next few years when you have artificial intelligence in your mind and you have some relation with...
I mean, I don't know what can happen, but I hope I'm not going to be part of something that can destroy human interaction or human relationships. Mm-hmm. I think artificial intelligence, just to go a little bit on that, because it's a field that I've been exploring for the last 5 years, has a lot of power as long as it's empowering human decision-making, not replacing humans. Mm-hmm. It's not about replacing humans, it's about enhancing humans and stopping repetitive tasks or, things that machines can do better than you. I still hesitate that you can have a romantic relationship with a computer. I still hesitate that.
Me too, but we know that it's happened.
Yeah, probably. And who knows, we are a strange species as well, so...
Okay, can you share some success stories of athletes who have gone through the trust building process and achieve some remarkable results?
I mean, to be honest, I don't know absolutely any athlete in the history of the sport that I've been touching for a long time that since the beginning trusted blindly the process and just followed through and like, oh, it happened as you said and it was great. That's not human, to be honest. It's actually the opposite. It's like you have all these athletes coming to you, to the coaches, and yeah, I will trust whatever, and then something goes south, something happens, they don't have the PR, they don't have the results. What you see is like they hold that for a few seasons, sometimes 1, 2, 3 seasons or a few races, and they think the problem is the coach. The problem is the plan. It can be them. Yeah. It can be the introspection. It is not their fault. They are doing everything that it's in the plan. And again, it's like, but it also depends on who are you talking to and what kind of like relationship you've been building. Because I always tell the athletes since the very beginning, it's gonna be difficult. There will be a lot of setbacks. There will be a lot of struggle. No matter if you want to lose weight, 5 kilos, or if you want to be world champion. The struggles are different, but the struggles will be there for both cases.
And this is life.
It's like I want to start a business. It's going to be the same. No matter if you have a lot of money, no matter if you don't have money. It's going to be a struggle. Different struggle for both, but it's going to be a struggle. But there will be growth in the process. Even if you end up not losing the amount of weight you decided you wanted to lose, or the PR you wanted to set, or the world championship you wanted to win. But ultimately, there should be this mindset of process over outcomes. And outcomes are important, but if you over-focus on outcomes, then you are digging yourself into a hole. Because we are not machines. We are not mathematically planned to deliver results.
Okay.
So, back to this, I think the best example I can give you of tough athletes that are trusting blindly the process, I think Kasia and Maciek are that kind of athletes. I mean, we've gone through a lot of like, thank you, Iñaki, it's been great working with you, like several times, and like, you need to allow space and then come back to it. But ultimately, you can see the tremendous amount of endurance and trust they have because I've been there. I know it's not easy. And I've had only 2 coaches in all my career. I'm still retired and I'm still working with the same coach I had when I was an elite. I'm not self-coach. And there was like a year that I probably did like 200 hours of training. So why I do that? Because I still want the feedback. I still want the relationship. There is a lot of value out of that. It's giving me perspective. And now that I'm training more, for different reasons, because I don't want to, outperform my younger self or beat anybody, but like just stay healthy and challenge myself out of the comfort zone.
I think more challenge yourself than...
Yeah, it's about some personal challenge, right? Why? Because I'm finding still who I am. That's the reason of me doing sport. I enjoy it a lot. Yesterday I did this solstice ride that I do every June for the last decade or so. And I'm active all the day. And people ask me, why yesterday? Why are you so happy? I was in the supermarket buying stuff. And I'm like, because I was exercising like for 9 hours straight. And it's just like bringing me joy. I'm tired, but I really enjoy that.
But I like this kind of tiredness.
Yeah. So there is ups and downs, but there are athletes that really get it. And I think eventually successful athletes, when you go and analyze, they truly understand that it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of patience. If it's endurance training, it takes a shitload of time.
Yeah.
A lot of time. And there will be a lot of setbacks because the more time you are out there, the more setbacks you are planning to have. Right? So,
what kind of specific strategies or techniques do you recommend for athletes who are in the process of building the trust in the training process?
I think the most important thing is they need to understand why they want to do that.
So still know the why.
You need to know why I want to do an Ironman, why I want to become a better cyclist. Are you doing it to look better? Are you doing it because you are tired of your wife and there is a lot of noise in the house on the weekends and you want to get out of there for 5 hours and have your personal space? And I'm not judging anything. You just need to know why are you doing something. Once you understand the why, it's like, okay, is this going to stay like this for a long period of time, or what needs to be my perspective? Because maybe it's a hobby that I want to have for a certain period of time and I'm just like trying to have mental space, or I'm doing it, for example, for longevity. So I need to have in my radar how I want, which is my case, how I want to live my life if I get to 80 or 90 years old. And I don't want to walk with a stick, or, like I'm trying to avoid that. So I'm trying to buy maybe 5-6 more years of quality time in my life if I'm not hit by a car, riding the bike.
May I interrupt you?
Yes.
So, in your opinion, when is the border for having too much training or staying in the, let's say, safety zone?
It's all relative. Because I would argue to tell you, do you think 40 hours a week of training is a lot? It's safe? It's healthy?
Nope.
Okay. I would argue, okay, depends on what you want to achieve. How well are you recovered? You are a full-time professional athlete living in the mountain.
I still have in my mind this vision about being 90 years old and walking without stick and 40 hours per week.
You don't need that. For health purposes, not.
For sure not.
But for performance purposes,
yes.
Maybe yes.
But
so,
you know that the performance and health are not in the same line.
Not, but I would argue that probably longevity is, because if you go to research studies of Olympians, you would see that, for example, power Olympians, they have, in average, compared to the population, like 1 year more of living. Compared to endurance athletes, compared to the population, endurance Olympic athletes, they would go 5 to 6 years above the population. So in terms of, and I little bit giving back this, I think it's very important to have this assessment that everything starts with health. Mm-hmm. So jeopardizing health for performance, I'm totally against that. I still believe you can aim to be an elite athlete and compete at super high level while staying healthy. But it takes more patience and it requires more commitment as well. And the tolerance to setbacks needs to be a little bit higher because you are playing in a different field. That will be my argumentation to this.
It's difficult, but I think we will talk about it later in this episode, about how to connect many different areas of your life. I mean, private life, business, health, activity, and how to find a solution to keep it on the same level, the best level that is possible to achieve.
But please bear in mind, like we talk about these 40 hours of training, that probably don't apply to anybody listening your podcast or the audience or the general population. So what I'm trying to say is we normally take these examples and it's like, oh, wow. No, I think if you are able, to be honest, to exercise 1 hour a day, it's already like a huge win.
It's more than average win. For sure.
You know, if you are able to exercise 3 times per week, 1 hour, that's already a win. Like, we are going to the extremes, but and sometimes people get scared about exercising because they hear these stories of, I need to do an Ironman or, a Gran Fondo or a cycling race. No, you don't need to do that. You can go to the forest and walk with a backpack of 5 kilos in your back, or go with your dog. And most people will get hurt starting out of the couch and go running. Why?
Or because doing Ironman.
No, because they skip the walking. You know this. I've coached even elite athletes, and we start walking, and they're like, come on, man, this is disrespectful. I'm like, listen, man, I don't care you are an elite athlete. You want to go through the process that I think is best for you. You need to do this because And most of my athletes, regardless of the discipline, they do walking. I mean, today, my training, you saw it, it was 7-kilometer walk. That was it. That was my day today. So I do it myself. So it's okay. It's staying active. That's the principle of health. You need to stay active and be close to nature. I think that's a key component as well. But we can leave that for later.
Yeah, I would like to cover one more question about the process of trust. In your experience, what are the common misconceptions that athletes have about trust in the training process? I don't know, motivation and balancing life commitments.
I think, even easier than that is they have a training plan in Training Peaks or in Excel or in a notebook, and they think that if they follow the plan, they will accomplish the objective. It's guaranteed. And I think that's the biggest pitfall you can think about. The plan is to get you out of the comfort zone, to stress your body and your mind. Then the recovery phase is to adapt, and then we'll see if it worked, depending on the day, the weather, if you sleep well, if you hydrated properly, and you need to keep iterating constantly. And if you would go and ask athletes, amateur, elite, that are competing in races, they will tell you that it's impossible to have good race after good race after, and the progress is not linear. The progress is like a roller coaster, ups, downs, scattered points everywhere. Like there is no trend in the very short time. But if you take a decade or 5 years, then you can see if the trend is positive, especially starting off, what is your health? How are you thinking about yourself? Mm-hmm. Your development as a human? How are your relationships in sport and outside sports? And you start questioning all these things. And if they are pointing in a positive trend, okay, this thing of endurance sport is really, really working. Because what can end up happening is you are like the super, ultra, hyper athlete, and that's it. And you're empty inside. And you don't have friends at the expense of your family. And if you are happy with that, and I know people that have gone through that, and I don't think they were happy because they got out of it. So that's why you need to understand your whys once again.
Yeah. Many athletes struggle with motivation to train consistently. What are the strategies or techniques that you recommend to stay motivated throughout the season?
I don't believe in motivation. If an athlete comes to me and they are not self-motivated, I don't work with them.
Okay.
So no
I've got the same
cheerleaders.
case with nutrition.
No cheerleading, no like clapping and come on, let's do this, watch this YouTube channel, and no. Like if you are not motivated and you don't know why you want to do this, I don't have the answer.
So it's not about the watching movie from Iron Man every single day on YouTube.
I think there could be a spark, probably once. In my case, happened few times as an athlete that were like motivating me, but it's not like every day you are struggling with motivation. What I would argue is if you are struggling with motivation, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. Or the process is wrong, or your why is wrong, or there is something wrong. You shouldn't be struggling. Motivation constantly. It's a bad indicator. If you are like, I'm not motivated constantly, you need to fix it. And it's the fix is not within the sport, it's outside of sport.
So maybe still get the knowledge about the why.
Yeah, I said this constantly. And, I've shown you training plans. You've seen how I coach people. It's quite simple, at least for me, because it's like stair. It's one step at a time. You get 2 steps down, then you move once again up, then you wait a little bit in that step for sometimes years, and then you do 3 steps in one way, and then you are back to step 1, and it's the process. But ultimately, you are learning a lot.
Yeah, I know because I've been in that process for 3 years or so, and I know it works. I know your philosophy of coaching athletes. I buy it 100%. I agree with that. It works, and it's quite simple, but you have to be patient and be sure that you are regular in terms of your activity.
And I will tell you something more physiological. we can engage into, like high intensity interval training if they have to be 1 minute with 2 minutes rest. And that's what people like to talk about. But the secret is not in, the intervals of you, if you train with power or with heart rate or with the combination. Of course, there is a big component of deep understanding of physiology, but also of psychology. It has to be the blend because we are not machines. So you know how I coach. For example, if you're an endurance athlete, I'm not a believer. For someone completely unfit, any kind of stimulus will work.
Yeah.
But there is a point where it gets really, really serious, and I will take the extreme. Once you are a person who is putting more than 1,000 hours per year in training, it's very important the kind of workouts and periodization that you are providing so the stimulus is not plateauing. But handling these kind of loads at the very elite level, for me, sometimes is much easier than trying to advise because they get this. Most of elite athletes are there and they kind of get this. It's simple. You wake up, do the run, eat, sleep, do the second run, eat, sleep, do the yoga, and sleep again. Like, it's kind of like, if you don't enjoy that monotony, you can't be a professional athlete because the beauty is in the monotony and the simplicity. Now, if you are an amateur athlete and you are like, after like 6 months of doing the same kind of workout, like, hey, you need to do a 4-hour ride on the weekend. Oh, coach, I'm bored of this 4-hour ride. Okay, man, so probably endurance sport is not for you because endurance sport is fucking boring. Like, there is nothing fancy about it. You get into the bike, you bike for 7 hours, or for 4 hours, you go to the run, you run 2 hours, you go to the pool, you swim 4 kilometers. Yeah, the intervals are some kind of stimulus, but like, don't expect here to find, gold in or coins and groches in the ground, and it's fantastic day every day, and everything is different. If you don't see that beauty on the consistency, on, the change of the seasons while you are with nature, if you don't enjoy that, this is not probably for you.
And you have to like to spend the time with yourself.
Yeah, it's very introverted discipline, endurance sport in general. You are isolated, you are within yourself for a long time, and probably answering those whys that you have in the head. And it's a great time to acknowledge that and introspect.
The next question will be not about physiology, but mostly about psychology.
Mm-hmm.
What are some signs that an athlete might be pushing themselves too hard?
When they want to race all the time.
Okay.
When they want to train and don't take a rest, and when they are feeling guilty that they take days off or weeks off, or not completely off, but just recovery phases, and they are feeling guilty about it. And it's again why you are running away from something. Like, what are you running away from? Being with yourself, not in the bike, but like just sitting in the house and solving that issue that you have and you haven't solved, because in the bike you kind of are away, but here you are here, you can't solve it, but you don't take the phone and solve it, right? So I think it's mainly that ability.
Okay, so there is one more topic I would like to cover, and we were talking about it for a while, but the next question is about the balance between your private life, I mean, not your, but general private life, training, businesses, family, how to find a solution, how to keep it high without sacrificing any of these areas.
It can't happen without sacrificing.
Okay, so what are your solutions?
You are always taking options and making choices. So that's why I believe it's so important to take this why. And that's why also when someone specifically that it's amateur wants to work with me, I think those are the best hours of that person, because he or she is deciding not to spend this time producing money with whatever they are doing in life, or spending their time with someone they love, but they are giving me that time to help them to get better and understand themselves better. So for me, this is the most valuable time. So I take super seriously that time. So I try to take the best, not only for their health and for their performance, but for their personal growth. But I mean, I don't know if I'm answering the question properly.
Yeah. Keep going.
So just guide me through the question again, because I lose my train of thought.
The question was how to find a balance between...
Okay, so the balance.
Training,
yeah,
work...
So coming back to that point, I don't think there is balance.
Okay.
Actually, I believe, and Steve Magnus and Brad Stulberg have a book, fantastic, about this, and it's the passion paradox.
I know, it was a gift for me from you.
Yeah, so basically the concept is two things. Your strengths can become your kryptonite, if you like Superman, right? So your strengths can become your weaknesses at some point, like because you are so strong in them that you can overdevelop and be blinded by them. And it happens a lot with endurance athletes. They are so good in being alone and doing the work that they don't take off, they don't, build a relationship with other people, a network, something to do when they are after the sport. So I think you need to be completely on balance in life. And how it looks, many people think, I want to do a triathlon or do a cycling race or, lose weight. And they think it's like super balanced, everything like, okay, I eat this in the morning, this in the afternoon, this in the night, or I train, 2 hours in the morning, then work 8 hours with my family. No, it doesn't look like that. When you talk to athletes, normally they have very consistent routines. I'm talking about specifically amateur athletes. And for example, they will allow mornings, if they're a morning person, or if not afternoon. Most of the people I know are morning athletes, which is they wake up super early before their family is awake, get their training done, first thing in the morning, then the family is awake, they either take the kids to school, have lunch with them, breakfast with them, or whatever, prepare them to go to school, take them to school, go to work. Many of these athletes in the middle at the lunch hour are doing like a swim or a short run, like 30-40 minutes, many of them. So their lunch break, they take it to run again or to do a workout. And later in the afternoon, many of them are doing it again. So you have other kind of athletes, also amateur, less strict with that, and they will take half of, Wednesday off, and they will do a long ride. And they have like their mini weekend, and they start their day at 9 a.m., but they started at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning, and they ride 4 hours. So there are many different strategies, but there is not such a thing as balance. They need to negotiate with family. They need to sometimes ditch training completely. And I believe in that. And I also believe that weekend, if you are a family person, there has to be a day in the weekend exclusively for your family and no training at all. That has to exist. And if you want to do something in the weekend related to training and you care about your family, you do it with your family. You make them part of that. And it can be something like go for a walk or go for a hike or play in the pool with your kids. Or it can be, again, race and repeat. Do it before everyone is awake, and then you are fully for them for the entire Saturday or Sunday, or the entire Saturday and Sunday. So there are many different strategies. I mean, I could just talk about how to manage your schedule to tackle this, but it's very personal and very unique to the circumstances of the persons and the individuals.
It looks like a difficult task.
It is very difficult.
How to manage every kind of area of your life.
And sometimes, to be honest, especially when I retired from elite sport and I was like coming back to like civilian life and, I was like, whoa, how these people doing Ironman and having a work really do? It's like very fucking hard. So I have a lot of respect for all of us, because I'm included there, who are amateur athletes. And we are trying to be fit, be competitive, and still not get fired from our work, and still have good relationships with our family, with our spouses, with our partners, with our kids, with our mothers, sisters, and so on. So it's very challenging, but it's part of the challenge probably we are looking, because we like to do hard things.
Inaki, thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge and experience. If someone wants to find more about you, where they can find you in the internet?
They can write me to my email. You can put it there in the description of the link to my Gmail, my personal account. Or they can find me in Twitter as well. I will share the Twitter with you.
LinkedIn?
And LinkedIn, of course.
Okay. Thank you very much once
Thank
again.
you to everyone and to you, Mateusz. Let's go for a ride this weekend.
Yeah. See you. Bye.
Bye.
To już wszystko w tym odcinku. Mam nadzieję, że rozmowa z Inakim była dla Ciebie interesująca, że tak jak ja uważasz, że jest to bardzo ciekawa postać, która ma bardzo interesujące spojrzenie na kwestię procesu treningowego, na to jak podchodzimy do samego procesu treningowego. Ja osobiście wiele nauczyłem się od niego właśnie w tym zakresie, chociaż nie tylko w tym. Jeżeli podobał Ci się odcinek, możesz udostępnić go na swoich mediach społecznościowych, możesz zasubskrybować ten podcast w aplikacji podcastowej, w której słuchasz tego odcinka. A na koniec tylko jedno ogłoszenie. To był ostatni odcinek przed wakacjami. W lipcu i w sierpniu prawdopodobnie, nie mówię, że na pewno, ale prawdopodobnie nie ukaże się żaden odcinek. Z uwagi na moje liczne wyjazdy na zgrupowania z kadrą nie będę miał prawdopodobnie możliwości na to, żeby te odcinki nagrywać, aczkolwiek będę miał zawsze ze sobą przenośny zestaw do nagrywania. Jeżeli tylko nadarzy się taka okazja, to być może jakiś odcinek pojawi się w tej przerwie wakacyjnej. Jeżeli nie, to do regularnego nagrywania wrócę we wrześniu, więc od września możesz spodziewać się kolejnych odcinków. Dziękuję za Twój dotychczasowy czas, za obecność, za słuchanie tych odcinków i do usłyszenia po przerwie wakacyjnej. Trzymaj się, cześć.